illustration. I'll be reading a few verses out of Exodus this morning to begin with. I'll let you know. Chapter 14. I'm beginning to think about what to speak on this morning, to be led to share. One of the things that came into mind, all the circumstances we've been in the past few months, was a phrase that I kept hearing, and I probably repeated it my own self. But the phrase I kept hearing was, "I can't wait to get back to normal." I'm sure we all have heard that. And even coming up here to the pulpit, I passed by Mr. Jerry, and I guess he saw me coming to the pulpit, and he said, "Man, I can't wait till things get back to normal here at the church." I guess he was talking about me preaching this morning, but no, in serious, we've all heard that. I just want to think about that subject and that simple phrase this morning, how it pertains in our lives. I want to start off this morning just in prayer, if we will go to prayer this morning. Lord, I just thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for this opportunity to gather in your house, Lord. I just pray that everything done here today, this morning, that will be said would be from you, Lord. I just pray for your guidance, your words, your wisdom, Lord, to be shared. And I pray that we each earnestly evaluate where we stand, Lord. If there's changes that we need to make, Lord, please reveal them. There's discernment that we need to decipher, Lord. I just pray that you'll give us that wisdom, Lord, in our lives. Just deal with us, Lord, and let's prepare our own hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. So that's one of the phrases, like I said, that no matter where I've been, going back to work or talking with friends, I've heard countless times. And like I said, I probably said that myself a couple times. Man, I just can't wait to get back to normal. But I want to ask you this morning, what does that mean in your life? If you had to take a synopsis or just an overview of your life, what does normal look like in your life today? And I want you to spend a little time and seriously think about what normal looks like in our lives. If we'll look in Exodus chapter 14, this is where the Israelites was heading out of Egypt. Moses came in and they began to move the millions across, and they began to come upon the Red Sea in this particular few verses. And this time they looked back and they saw the Egyptians and Pharaoh and his chariots following them. And they looked ahead and they saw the Red Sea. And starting with verse 10, I'm going to start reading and pick up a few verses there on verse 10. It said, "As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to God. They said to Moses, 'Was it because there was no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to the desert to die?'" A little highly sarcastic there. "What have you done bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would be better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Why were the Israelites complaining? Wasn't Moses the one that was bringing them out of slavery, out of bondage that they were in? Why were they complaining to Moses? They saw the Red Sea and they saw the Egyptians quickly approaching. They began to complain. They were afraid. And sometimes what we crave most when we're afraid, or we're in something that's unfamiliar, or we're uncomfortable, is normal in our lives. Even though that they were enslaved, even though that they worked hard, they was in bondage, they was ruled over, they cried out. They would have rather gone back into Egypt to work the way that they did, to be ruled over, because that was normal in their lives. They did not see what God had in front of them, what God had planned. It's natural when we're in a place that we don't know, when we're uneasy, to be afraid, to crave that normal. If we'll look back just earlier in Exodus chapter 5, I want us to compare the lives of the Israelites then in Egypt. I asked you earlier this morning, what did normal look like in your life? I would like to compare how normal looked in their lives at this time. Just before they left, just before Moses gathered them up and they were released, told to leave, starting with verse 4, it said, "But the king of Egypt said, Moses and Aaron, why are you talking or taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work." Then Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you are stopping them from working." That same day Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and overseers in charge of the people: "You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but will require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Do not reduce the quota. They are lazy, and that is why they are crying out, 'Let us go and sacrifice to our God.' Make their work harder for the people, so they will keep working and pay no attention to the lies." So right before the Israelites left Egypt, the mandate came down as Aaron and Moses was beginning to speak with Pharaoh about letting the people go. It came down that they were no longer supply the straw to them. They were to go to gather their own straw, but they still had to make the same amount of bricks each day. When preparing this message and reading these verses, thinking these verses, I couldn't help to see the parallel of this story in our lives today. You know, we may not be enslaved or told necessarily what to do, but I still think, just like God was trying to speak with the Israelites, maybe it be through somebody like He was with Moses and Aaron, I still think God's trying to speak to us today. I still think that He's trying to help us in situations to better ourselves, to look at things a different way, and maybe, like I said, maybe through different people or whatever, but I still think He's trying to do that today. But I also still think that the devil, in this particular story, may have been Pharaoh, or may have been the leaders that passed down, is trying to take our sight, our focus away from God, to make us seem that we need to be doing more in our lives today, that we're busy, that we entertain our time, that we fill all of our free time with things, with entertainment, with circumstances, with bad relationships, whatever it might be. That, like it said here in the last verse that I read, that we pay so that we will not pay attention, that we will believe the lies of the devil. You cannot think of a more complicated time in life today than right now. There's so many things that take us away from God today. Now, albeit not all of them are bad, but if it's taken away from our relationship with God, that's exactly what it is. You know, one of my good friends that I work with was I guess quarantined, I guess you would say, at the house. And so was his family. And he began to, I guess we still talked, you know, pretty much every week, 2 or 3 times a week. And it was just amazing to me to see the revelation in him, how his relationships were previously and how they could be, I guess. Just all the time that he took to do different things. And I'm not saying again that all of the things are bad, but there's a lot more things that are important than what we fill our time with each and every day. And just to see that revelation in him and with his family and his story of how he shared just the simplest thing. And I'm sure we all can attest to that here this morning. I mean, me personally, maybe I sit back there and took gathering in this building for granted each and every time that we was able to do so. Maybe stayed at the house when I shouldn't have. And then all of a sudden when somebody told me, or it was put that we couldn't gather, it was sad that that was a different perspective in my life. But how is it with us? How is it with you? In the many things that we do. Another good friend of mine shared a book with me that was more, I don't remember exactly the name of it. It was more or less, paraphrasing, was The American Dream and how God will fits in with my American dream. And the first few chapters of that book was pretty tough to read. It was a pretty good shock factor of reading because it was all things that you would think maybe you deserve or where you're at, maybe your own abilities and what you're doing, and you was blessed and all that stuff, but at the same time, he paralleled with a lot of it was speaking about possessions and money and what you have. At the end of the day, when you're dead and gone from this world, what does any of that matter? Not a lot. If you think of such as your job in those situations, what does that matter? Not a very lot. Now, of course, God wants us to do a good job, to be respectful, to work hard, to give our all. But at the end of the day, that's all it is. The most important thing is the relationships that we show, that we share with one another, the love that we show, the time that we make for one another, the helping hands, the kind words, the build up, all of these things. To be good Christians, to be good examples. That's what's important. That's what transcends generations. That's what makes an eternal difference in people's lives. Not these simple things. And I'll be honest, that was the same way where I would get frustrated at things at work or how things were going on. And that was on kind of an epiphany that I myself had to make. And realizing at the end of the day, all this is just a job. All this is. And I began to think to myself, you know, I heard something that somebody said preaching in some sermon or some video that I saw. And y'all know me well enough to know that, man, I like to to have everything thought out, to organize, to weigh out this option or that option, to have all the facts, to make a good informed decision and everything else. And I heard this, and it totally blew my mind a way of thinking up. And it was that God is less concerned in what you do, and He's more concerned on why you do it. And I began to think about that. Think about that with me. He's less concerned about what you do, but He's more concerned of why you do it. If you're worrying a big decision about a job opportunity, does God care if you're working at Walmart or if you're designing some space shuttle to go to outer space, or if you're a plastic surgeon, or if you're picking up Coke cans on the side of the road? I don't think He's too much concerned about what you're doing. I think He's a lot more concerned about why you're doing it, the people that you're reaching, the opportunities that you have, the attitude that you have while you're doing it, and the eternal difference that you're making in other people's lives while you're doing it. I think that's what's more important to Him. But how is it with our lives today? Like I said, we heard so many times, or should say, I've heard so many times, I just want to get back to normal. I just want things to be normal again. And I sit there and look about the parallels of the Israelites' life, that they were working so hard. They were being pushed to be busy. And why were they? Because Pharaoh didn't want them listening to what Aaron and Moses had to say. Pharaoh didn't want them to entertain what they had to say, because he knew that he was in trouble. He knew that he was on the verge of losing them. Just like the devil is today in our lives. If we're to listen to God and we're focused on God and everything that we're doing, we're seeking God, it would probably be amazing to see what God could do in our lives. But are we being entertained by the devil? Is the devil keeping us busy in our lives so that we don't see, that we don't listen, that we don't have the proper perspective in our lives? That's what he was trying to do. That's what Pharaoh was trying to do in the Israelites' life here. How is it with you? You might think that it's not too bad, the life you're living, or that we're living. But I think in some form or fashion, we're all addicted to the life that we are living. You can't be addictive without doing the same thing time after time until it becomes normal. Even if an addiction is bad for you and you know it, you'll do whatever you can to feel that new normal that you created in your life. You can say that with any addiction. If it's alcoholism, even if what you know is bad, you know you shouldn't do it, you know it's killing you, but whenever you get afraid or you get upset or you get sad or you get depressed, you go back to it because it's what feels good, it's what feels normal, it's what relaxes, it's what brings you back. Even if you know it's bad, and you can say that with any addiction, whether it's drugs, alcohol, gambling, sex, overworking, whatever it is, any addiction, all you're craving is that normal that you created in your life. That feeling that you're used to. But are we addicted to the lives that we've created? The routines that we've created in our lives? Are we addicted to that? Whereas whenever something comes in like it has this past few months and threw a hand grenade in the middle of our plans and totally disrupted it, and we're running around crying out, man, I wish things were normal. I ask you, have you become addicted to the normal life that you live in? Like I said, you may say my addictions aren't bad. I have my priorities straight. I make time for things that are important. I make an honest living. I'm a good person. I help others from time to time. I have my own little routine. I don't bother anyone. What if the Lord is saying to you today, that's just it? You're addicted to your normal life. You've grown comfortable and complacent of where you're at in your life and what you're doing. Romans 12, verses 1 through 2. Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercies, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, ongoing, living, future tense, holy and pleasing to God, that is your time and proper worship. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by constant renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and prove what God's will is, in good, pleasing, and perfect to His will. Maybe He's speaking to us today in those verses. Maybe there's changes that we need to make, new perspectives that we may need to see in our lives and how we live in them. And things that we maybe could be doing differently. Just like with the Israelites in Exodus, perhaps God is trying to show us a good work, or a great work in our lives today. Trying to start a great work in our lives today. Maybe He's trying to pry you out of what you're used to, pry you out of your own little routine, trying to start a great awakening across this land, a great movement back to Him, and you're busy looking at your own Red Sea ahead of you. You're busy looking at your own Egyptians behind you, and you're crying out, man, I just can't wait for things to get back to normal. In these last days, when all that is going on, and all that will be going on, when people are confused, when people are scared, when people are crying out, when people are dying and going to an eternal hell, I can tell you one thing for certain. God wants more for your life than just for you to be normal. So I challenge you today, with every great calamity or with every great upset or great problem, there's great opportunities for a solution. Meaning that how everybody's upset or everybody's frustrated or everybody's scared, it may just be the simplest things that you do in these times that can make an eternal difference to others. There's a great opportunity for you to be calm, for you to show love to others, for you to reach out, for you to make a difference in somebody's life, an opportunity to show love. And people are more receptive now than ever. They're looking for something. I used to sit back, and I've been in this church for 35 years, heard the Bible preached, heard this lesson, and I used to honestly sit back and think to myself, man, I mean, I know the Bible's true, but it's a far-fetched thing for me to see the world getting as bad as it, has to be for Revelations to be fulfilled. Look, I don't think that no more. I don't think that at all anymore. I can see that being fulfilled in the next few years, no problem. And I would like to think the other people have the same good sense as well. That maybe God's starting to deal with those people. But it's going to have to take us to be willing to be used from Him, and maybe potentially for us to step out of our normal routines, our normal life. Are you willing to do so? If we'll stand this morning, I'll ask Miss Danny to dismiss us this morning.